Experience curation is probably the number one thing that I think most people miss. And also in that experience curation, how you are actually designing it with something that we call conversion content, so that the content itself actually supports your conversion, as opposed to you just whacking some things together, putting some random speakers up on the stage and then making an offer at the end and hoping that people buy.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Have you ever gone to a conference in space? I want to welcome you out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I'm your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we are talking with Brody Lee, and we're going to be talking about the power of events and the importance of human connection. I'm really excited to have Brody out on the show. Welcome out.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
My pleasure. I'm excited to chat with you because we've hung out a little bit. I got to know you a little bit, but I don't know what got you here. So what was that moment in your life that you first realized you were an entrepreneur and maybe you just didn't see the world like everyone else?
Well, before I realized I was an entrepreneur, I woke up from a massive drug overdose that should have killed me. I love that I'm leading with that. Hi, everyone. I had this kind of like supreme moment of clarity where I looked up and there was my mom, my dad, a paramedic and a police officer all looking down at me. And I was like, man, is this really how you want to live your life? And an expletive came out of my mouth. I know that we're live, so and the answer was no. It was no. Like I had in the previous few months, I'd been exploring whether or not I'd been sexually abused as a child in therapy, and it became clear that I had, and I spiraled out and I relapsed on. I'd had a very strong and vibrant drug and alcohol history previously. And what was really cool about this, though, is that when I woke up, I kind of woke up to life again. And so it gave me an opportunity to reevaluate. I started putting myself in personal development rooms, and I had this beautiful moment at a Tony Robbins event where I got complete with the trauma and I experienced pure unadulterated joy for the first time in 26 years at that point. And it was beautiful because in that moment I decided, I'm like, man, I want every day to feel like this and I want everyone to feel like this. And I made a commitment to make my life be about impact and meaning. And so I went to the back of the room, purchased all of their stuff. The next day, they hadn't sold me the business part. I was like, you haven't sold me the business one. I said everything. I don't even have a business yet. And the person said to me, guarantee you that you've got a business idea in you. And a couple of weeks later, started my business. And the premise of it was, though, is that originally it was, I don't want anyone to go through the pain that I've been through. And it turned into, well, this is going to be about something larger than just myself. This is about humanity, moving the human race forward and helping people to really stand in their power, which is something that I did not have since the age of 5 years old when I was abused. And so we've built from there. It's been a very remarkable journey. We're almost 7 years in now, 8 years in, I think. I started the business in late 2018. So
so that
a wild ride.
That business that you started in 2018, after all of that and made those like big steps, is that the same business you're running today?
No, so it's had a bit of a pivot midway through.
Yeah,
so originally,
as most things should. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, originally, man, I didn't have tickets on myself, if I can say that. Like I wasn't very confident in my abilities in business, and it's really funny because I'd done a lot of businesses previously. Like at school, I used to write notes to help other kids get out of class because I had really good handwriting, and I charged them $5 for those notes. And then I clearly at the age of
here's where we're actually getting the real answer. So you actually had these little moments of entrepreneurship, even in school. So we get there. Now we're starting to uncover it.
And it was like, I had this really good concept of supply and demand because if they wanted the note before, like if they wanted to get out of class, they got a note before for $5. But if they'd already skipped class, the next day I would write the note and charge them $10 for it. And I left school with $3,000, which actually helped pay for my pilot's license, which at the time I wanted to become a pilot. So I did all of that. Yeah. And then, so fast forward and, there's a couple of other businesses in there that I probably can't talk about on radio, but the business that I started I was a performance coach. That's how I helped people, get the dream job. And the reason why I did that was because just before I overdosed, I used to work for Apple. Now, at the time, I trained their leadership and executive teams on, how to sell one-to-many. But when I started the business, I didn't remember that. All I remembered was that I helped people perform at Apple. And so I started the business around that. And the business did really well. I created more money in my first 10 weeks than I'd done in the previous year at Apple. And people started asking, like, how did you do this? The funny thing was, events were always a part of the mechanism. I've been speaking on stages since I was a little boy, in school and stuff like that. I was valedictorian, those sorts of things. So I had the craft down packed already, and obviously training people at Apple, of course, I needed to be on stage. And so we ran our first event in those first 10 weeks of me starting the business, and one person showed up to the event, which was torture. But I made $20,000. And so we started
With one person?
With one person, yeah. I wanted to walk out. This dude came in like 15 minutes after we were supposed to start. I was terrified. I had a friend and her son there that were just like there for moral support. And I kind of had this moment like I just wanted to run, and I could not run it and just say, hey, we're not doing this, or I could respect the fact that he was in the room. And so I sat down and delivered the content for 3 hours. And you know what happened? Like the dude gave over 20 grand at the end of it.
That's amazing. I think I want to unpack that just a little bit more, because so many people in their business journey and in their life, they'll start something and the first iteration doesn't go as well as they think, right? We all have dreams of packing a room the way Tony Robbins does, but he started just going out and helping people on the street, right? He didn't start by packing rooms.
Yep.
And
he made wild promises as well. He was like, I will stop you from smoking. And crazy stuff like that. I'll get rid of this phobia.
And I mean, he believed in it. And so, but the thing is so often we compare, I like the adage that we will compare our chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20.
Yeah.
And we get upset, right? Well, why am I not like that yet? And it's like, well, because you haven't written the first chapter yet.
That's right.
So in that first chapter where you just said, I'm going to host this event, most people would have closed the book. Right. But you kept going, you kept writing. I did. And that's a big deal. Events. I want to commend you for that.
Thanks, man. I think I made a commitment at that event that I was never going to let my room be empty ever again. And I think that's like the distinction that you're trying to make here is that some people would see that, this idea of signal and noise and whatnot. Some people would see that as a signal that, hey, it's not working. And they'd get clouded by all this noise in their head. Whereas I just go, okay, cool. I got to figure a different strategy than boosting a Facebook event to people and seeing that 40 people registered. I was so green. I had no idea.
Well, that's the thing. These are massively different skills, right? Marketing an event and being able to like run the event on stage. Those are different sides of the event
1,000%.
equation, right? So you had to start realizing there's certain things you knew and there's certain things you didn't, but you were willing to learn. So how'd you overcome that? Like, I mean, obviously you were able to still close, and that event was at least a moderate success. But how did you build towards your next event to make it even better?
I decided that I was going to become a pro at marketing. And I needed to figure that out. You're right. I had the stage presence. I had the ability to sell on stage. That was kind of like second nature to me because I'd been speaking on stages my whole life, but I needed to learn the art and craft of the art science, really, not the craft, like of marketing. And one thing I did have on my side was that I was at school. I finished my year with like top marks, top of the state for English. And so I was a writer. And so copywriting came relatively easy to me. We just kept putting these things on around Australia at the time. That's where I lived. And by the end of the first year, I'd closed $1.3 million in my first year in business, which to a lot of people listening, people might go, whoa. But for myself at the time, I'd never experienced that type of cash. But what was happening, I don't know if it was necessarily skill so much as sheer dumb luck, because I was driven by what I was running from, which was the drugs, the alcohol, the experience of almost dying, and running towards, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to be relentless. I don't care what's thrown in my way. I'm going to make sure that I've got something to be super proud of. If you think about it, you spoke before about people who were just starting, like your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 10, chapter 20. I'd already lived many, many lifetimes by that point in terms of what I'd put myself through. But the chapter 1 for me, if you're looking into my business journey, was drugs and alcohol and overdose. And then I built multiple chapters throughout that year, 12 chapters if we look at it monthly, right? And it got me to this really beautiful thing. By that point, we'd kind of figured out the events model. The next couple of years, we ran that model to scale the business, and I transitioned into helping people grow their businesses because I suddenly became really good with that. We had 400 businesses that we helped start and scale. And then eventually I decided I hate this. And I was like, I hate the $3.5 million a year business that I built. And again, another green thing, I was naive to the idea of potentially selling the business, and I just walked away from it. I made my client load of 100 redundant. I made my team of 10 redundant. And I decided I wandered around aimlessly for a bit. And then it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, dude, you're an expert at events. why have you not been teaching and training and consulting on this? It's the one thing where you can impact more lives in one day than any other mechanism. And it's the only strategy. Like if you look at all the internet marketing strategies we use today, they've been around for about 25 years. Events have been around ever since humans kind of started walking. Like we've used them to connect, communicate, and engage in commerce for 300,000 years. And there's a reason, to your point with Tony Robbins, he's been doing the same event for 40 years, Unleash the Power Within. It's a reason why. So, and so that's when the eventsconsulting.co brand started. And I've been very blessed, very blessed. I followed Tony around for 2 years working on his events. As a volunteer, I ended up managing teams. I was in the room for every single pitch, learned a ton from them, and worked with some huge names in the industry like Amber Spears, Taylor Welch, Alaric Heck. And like one that blows my mind still to this day, I helped a presidential candidate announce that they were running for president, and I helped them with their clearly probably the most important sales pitch of all time. They didn't get elected, but they didn't even win their primary. But hey, it was a very awesome experience.
Yeah, that's cool. It's fun to kind of break this down because obviously these are things that you've talked about before, right? But I get to learn them all here for the first time.
Yeah, let's do it.
You started this business. Yes, it's a big deal to do 1.3 million your first year on a brand new business that you're just figuring out. Scale that up to 3.5 million is, beats most businesses that, especially solopreneurships or non-funded companies. Many never hit that tier. And so you walked away from it. You're now in the US, right? And you've launched eventsconsulting.co. And so you're helping other people run events and all those things that you've learned from your experience, from Apple, from Tony Robbins, all those things, you get to bring them all in. What is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they run events before they hire you?
I love this question. They treat their audience like ATMs. That's my biggest pet peeve. I think people do events very poorly in our industry. If you think about, I talk about this a lot, the investment that people are making and the cost of them being there. So first of all, obviously there's the cost of them purchasing the ticket to your event. There is the cost of the flights and accommodation, but there's other costs as well that are not as obvious to most people. There is the physical time cost of actually just being there. There is the opportunity cost of being out of their business, and there's the relational cost of being away from their family. So most people put on these events where they put you in a crappy conference room with some monotone speaker, and it just becomes a pitch fest. It's just like boom, 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 buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. And I hate it because A, it's boring. B, it's not fun to be an audience member. And as somebody who really respects the craft of events, like I studied under Steve Jobs, I look at this sort of stuff and I go, dude, you've got to do better. The industry has to do better. At the moment, we're seeing supply of human connection dwindle. Everyone knows we have these incredible devices. We have these phones. We're supposed to bring us closer together. Social media, it's made us more divided. Rise of AI. So supply of human connection is dwindling. Demands for it's increasing. So when you walk into my room, I want you to feel like you've left all of that behind and you've entered a different world. And so the mistake that people make is not curating an experience that's worthy of people's time and attention in being there. And it's got to be like that thing is I've said it's a bit like it's an art form to curate an experience that people are touched, moved, and inspired, so that there's an intrinsic desire for them to kind of want to work with you. Is very different to buy my stuff, straight line selling, run to the back of the room, rah, or you're like, your world's going to fall apart. So experience curation is probably the number one thing that I think most people miss. And also in that experience curation, how you are actually designing it with something that we call conversion content, so that the content itself actually supports your conversion, as opposed to you just whacking some things together, putting some random speakers up on the stage and then making an offer at the end and hoping that people buy.
Yeah. So you don't want to just treat your attendees like an ATM. I like that you appreciate the total cost of them showing up, and there's a value there. And there's some respect that how much they've invested already to show up. But you do want to sell, right? You are open. You're not one of those, well, we don't sell, right? That doesn't work. No. It's hard to be profitable on the event without a back end offer.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the first thing I say, and I can get away with this because of what I do, is I literally say, hi, my name is Brody Lee, and by lunchtime tomorrow, you're going to be begging for me to sell to you. And a couple of things happen with that. First of all, some people are shocked. Some people laugh. Some people think it's hilarious. But what I'm doing is I'm already programming them to expect that there's going to be a sale, and it reduces that buyer's resistance by the time it comes the next day. I do just to kind of frame this up for people, so they don't just think that I'm just a money hungry pig. I believe that everyone on the planet, it's our duty to be filthy rich. And I say that humbly, knowing that 80% of the world's population live on less than $10 per day. We now know that the top 1% have, I forget, it's something like the top 1% have 5 times more wealth than the bottom 80% combined. That's like massive. And we shouldn't worry about that in the sense that we want to lift everybody up. And so how we do that is by empowering people that are living below the poverty line. So how do we do that? We make lots of money ourselves, and then we use that money as muscle to invest in worthy causes so that we can lift people out of poverty. I don't think that wealth is a bad thing. I think it's got a bad rap. I think that there's been some nefarious actors that haven't treated it well or treated other people well with it. But events for us are the mechanism for us to be able to enroll people in a better future and to make lots of money in the process so that we can do good with it.
Yeah, this is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. We are pro making money. We are pro elevating ourselves so that we can lift other people. I am a big believer of doing good for those around you, right? Not elevating yourself just so you can stand on a pedestal, but that you can lift up others and help. You know, you look at some of the bigger companies and you look at how many people they employ, right? And how much they pay in employment tax and property taxes on all the buildings they buy. Like there's so much that gets distributed when one business does well. So I'm with you on that. I think that's great.
Another quick thing as well, like the reason why the system is rigged at the moment and doesn't work is because of a failure of government. It's not a failure of business. And I think that's a real important thing to note. And it's global. It's not just in the United States. It's every government around the world. There's too many loopholes. There's too many lobbyists at the door that are getting what they want and having earmarks in different things. And so I think that for those of us on the outside, we use the industry to make the money so that we're not dependent on the machine of government. But the government still needs to provide a safety net and all that sort of stuff. So pay more taxes. I'm up for that.
And there are some businesses that are not doing their part, right? There's people that are bad on any of those things, but I'm with you at the same time. Like overall, you can't just overregulate, overtax, and then expect anything to thrive or get better. It's got to find that balance, things that actually work. Super appreciate that. So with what you're doing with events consulting, I have one question in general, and this you have to dig from, you have to answer from not somebody that you work with, and not somebody you worked for. Who out there is currently running events well? Who's a good example of the gold standard, or at least a bright silver in running an event?
I can't talk about somebody that I've worked with
because that's bias. I want to know. There's got to be some other people. It's like it's not only people who've worked with Brody, right? There's got to be a couple out there.
Yeah. So look, I haven't been employed by these guys, so or hired, so I can say this. I think that fits in, even though I volunteered for them. Tony Robbins is the gold standard, man. He really is. What he does in that environment is like nothing else that I see. We try and replicate a lot of it. We actually have some of his team work on our events as well, because the way in which he curates not just the experience of the entire journey, but he uses tools at his disposal like music, like sound, like different things of participation to really engage all of you. I think it's artful. He talks about, what does he talk about? He's like the science of success and the art of fulfillment. And he scienced the crap out of being in that room. If your audience has ever been to, I'm not religious, but your audience has ever been to like a modern New Age church, that modern New Age church uses music, sound, all that sort of stuff to assault all of your senses, to get you into worship and everything like that. Tony Robbins runs a secular version of that, where you go in and you have the time of your life. And that's really what got me into all of this, is because, I went into that room and I found my home. I found my emotional home with people through music, through learning about myself and whatnot. So I think that they do an exceptional job. I would say Tony. I'm not going to elaborate further. I'm trying to think of other people, but I think he's the standard.
I'm curious with Tony. I've read Tony's stuff like since the 90s, right? So it's been a long time. And, you know, he's older now. I'm curious if you think the art and the science, right? Is he losing a little bit of the artist touch? Is he over like, and I mean, this isn't a criticism. It's just like sometimes when we become so good at something, it's easy to become formulaic and lose like a little bit of that like humanity. And I don't know. And I'm not accusing him. I'm just curious.
I don't know. I think he's adapted.
Okay.
You know, we were thrown a huge curveball in 2020.
Sure.
And one of the things that I think that he did really well for a really long time was the live in-person experiences. And as he's aged, I think in many ways, COVID was probably a gift to his business model, because as he's aged, he's just had a kid recently as well. The demands on him and the amount of travel that he was doing probably would have like it's really tough at that age, right, to do it. I think he's in his like mid 60s now or something like that, or even close to his 70s. So I think the model has shifted more to a virtual, and I don't think you can create the same artful experience virtually. I love virtual events that like they served us really, really well. I did my first $1 million event virtually. Before I did $1 million event live in person, like that was in 2020. So I don't know. I think the art has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And the outcomes.
What's the biggest difference in what you can control and what you can't control from a live to a virtual event? Like, you know, if you're running the event, what's the biggest variable that you lose?
There's two things. One is hugs and physical touch. And I mean this really, really seriously.
Yeah, no, it just caught me off guard. Hugs is the answer.
We need between 5 and I think it's 8 hugs per day to get our natural nurture needs met. But when you're in the room with someone, if you're looking at like metaphysics and stuff like that, we all have magnetic fields and those sorts of things around us. We are hardwired as a species to gather as tribes, and you do not get that in a virtual experience. And so the ability to be in the presence of other people just is unmatched when you are together. The second piece of the puzzle is the most important part of the events, which is connection. Most of the value of events doesn't happen necessarily from the person on the stage, but the value of the person you're sitting next to that you meet in the hallway and whatnot. And you can try and engineer that virtually, and we put people into breakout rooms, all that sort of stuff, but it's not the same. No. And you don't create the same long-lasting friendships, because as soon as the event ends on Zoom, everyone's back in their home environment. They're not catching up for dinner afterwards. They're not doing those sorts of things. So they're the two ones. But yeah, lead with hugs, man.
I like that. Yeah, it's I don't do well with virtual events personally. Like I love being present. It's really hard for me to be present when, you know, like you said, when you end the meeting or the event, you're right back into your day-to-day life. And so, but there's some people have pulled off some great ones. So what are some things that you're really excited about in your business and the industry going into the back half of the year?
Yeah, man. So, you know, we're new to the US market. And so I'm on this pathway of what I hope is domination in the event space. And I say that humbly, but I have this vision for events be done really, really differently than how they're currently being done. And so we've got an event next year called Impact: Revolutions Disguised as Gatherings. And that Revolutions Disguised as Gatherings tagline is very, very important. Anything that's important that's happened throughout history has started with an event. If you think of labor movement, suffragette movement, racial justice, anti-segregation, abolition, all that sort of stuff happened because of events. And so what I'm trying to do to this industry is, whilst we've moved more and more and more online, is taking people offline to create really, really impactful experiences, and still leveraging the great tools like AI and all that sort of stuff. I think I'm bullish over the next 3 to 5 years. And I, again, say this without ego, but I'm going to be the Tony Robbins of the event space. And I know that with certainty because of the experience that we're going to curate in these events. Another thing that I'm really excited by, obviously, the rise of AI. We're doing such cool stuff with AI in terms of curating and creating incredible events and experiences and whatnot. It's just shortcutting the time down to like the time to value for our clients. Literally this morning, I'm doing a 3-hour event later this week, and I spent an hour on it with my team, and the whole event was designed because our AI knows all of my stuff and says, I want to do these things, and it puts it together. And then the final thing that I'm really excited by is, one day, a couple of years ago, I randomly posted on our Facebook, one day I'm going to do one of our events from space. And it was kind of like the haha moment. I wasn't thinking much of it at the time, but 1 week later, a client sends me an article about a hotel that's being built in space. And I was like, crap, this is no longer a harebrained idea. This is a plan. I got to follow through on this. And so eventually I was just going to do a business event in space. I was just going to take a couple people up to this hotel. But after a while, I was kind of like, this is a little bit dry. Like, rich white dude goes to space. That story's been told. I'm the impact guy. Like, I'm wearing a shirt today that says impact.
Yeah.
We do a lot of philanthropy through our events. How can we do something that's more powerful and meaningful? And so I'm building something that is called, right now it's called Project Orelis, which is the behind the scenes name. And Orelis is a combination of Uranus and Kalis, the Greek and Roman gods of the sky. And what I'm hoping to do is, sorry, not hoping, we are doing it. So we're going to create a modern day Live Aid, which is kind of like that concert in the 80s that supported raising money for AIDS. And we're going to do this and we're going to broadcast it from this hotel in space. And the goal is we're going to raise $10 billion for worthy causes through donations from sovereign wealth funds, from billionaires, from people donating like small cap donations, etc. And that money is going to be invested into a humanity future fund, and we're going to use the markets to grow the pie. That $10 billion, based on historical market returns, should net between $600 million to $1 billion every year in terms of growth. And so that $1 billion every single year forever will be donated to worthy causes. And so it's a moonshot thing. I'm very much aware that this could be completely fall on my ass, but I'm excited by it because nothing like that's ever been done before. And it's what Simon Sinek would call an infinite game. I have no idea where it's going to go or where I'm going to land, but I'm going to give it a red hot go because it's worthy of the pursuit. If only for that reason, let alone all of the potential outcomes for humanity as well.
Well, I do hope that when you land back on Earth safely.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, but that's I love that. I love like where that small nugget of an idea grew and what it's becoming, and I'm really looking forward to hearing and following that process and what evolves there. As we come to the end, I'm a big believer that business isn't just about lifestyle or just about winning big accolades, but it's also about living a life you love. And so I'm curious, what is one item on your personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
A personal bucket list, the next 12 months. Man, okay, that came out of nowhere. Oh gosh, I don't know. Big thing for me, man, is travel. Like I've just moved to the US. So I want to explore this beautiful country. I'm very much aware that I'm a guest in the country, and there's a really, really rich history here. So it's not going to happen in the next 12 months, but I am going to get to all 50 states.
All right. Well, where's somewhere you for sure you're going to go before, where's somewhere you really want to see in the US?
Oh, I would really like to go to Yosemite and some of those national parks. Yeah,
absolutely, man.
And Big Sur as well. I'm a big beach guy as well, so I'd like to see Big Sur and those kind of Pacific coastal beaches that remind me a lot of Australia. So yeah.
Well, I'm out here in California. Yosemite has a special place. After we're done recording, I'll send you a couple of pictures that I took of Yosemite. So
that sounds great.
let me know and I'll join you. Maybe we'll just have to run an event out here.
That's a really good idea.
So Brody, thank you so much for coming out. Everyone, please check him out at eventsconsulting.co. We'll also tag all of his socials. So wherever you're listening, tuning, watching, it's your turn to go out and do something.